Wow. I am so excited for you to hear this conversation with my friend, Dr. Tim Elmore. Written over 35 books. His new one about Gen Z is so impactful. Any business leader, business owner, manager, parent that wants to learn how to communicate better with this next generation, this conversation is for you. Here's my friend, Dr. Tim. Welcome to Market Mavericks. I'm Matthew Eford. Join me as I speak with leaders who are redefining industries in every corner of the market. From startups to established businesses, we'll uncover the strategies, challenges, and insights that drive success. Get ready to be inspired by the Mavericks who are shaping the future of business. Welcome, everybody, to Market Mavericks. I'm your host, Matthew Eford, and I'm so excited to have my new friend here with me, Dr. Tim Elmore. Dr. Tim and I met at a Boost Leadership, now Virtue Voices, meeting with a mutual friend of ours, Chris Carneal, who's a friend of the podcast. And he spoke there about one of his most recent books. I'm so excited to have you on, Dr. Tim. Let me just, for those who may not know Dr. Tim Elmore, let me read this short bio for you. It is quite impressive. Dr. Tim Elmore is the founder of Growing Leaders, an Atlanta-based nonprofit organization created to develop emerging leaders. His work grew out of 20 years of serving alongside Dr. John C. Maxwell. Elmore has appeared in the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, USA Today, Psychology Today. He's been featured in CNN's Headline News, Fox Business, Newsmax TV, Fox and Friends to talk about leading multiple generations in the marketplace. He's written, wait for it, over 35 books, including Habitudes, Images that Form Leadership Habits and Attitudes, 8 Paradoxes of Great Leadership, and a new kind of diversity, making the different generations on your team a competitive advantage. His latest book, which I'm super excited for you to get, those that are listening to this, is The Future Begins with Z, 9 Strategies to Lead Generation Z as They Upset the Workplace. It releases this fall, and we're going to make sure by the end of this that everybody knows where they can get that. Tim, thank you so much for coming on. I value your time. You've spoken to many, many people, and I appreciate you sharing with our audience. One of the things I'd love to get to just to start is to get to your start as a writer. What first drew you into this study of generational leadership?
Yeah, wow, good question. I think it goes back to the 1980s. I was new in my career. I was the new kid on the block, but I began to see differences between older generations and younger ones.
Okay.
So X was moving into the workplace. I'm a late baby boomer. And I thought, ooh, there's a few differences here. And then the millennials came along, and now Gen Z's coming along as the new kids on the block. So all the while, I was trying to find ways to build bridges between these generations that often found walls to be there. You know, we just didn't understand each other. We got frustrated with each other. So this new book on Gen Z is, I think they're going to bring some incredible changes if we're ready for them. And that's what this book's about, is getting ready.
I love that. Okay, so you get connected with Dr. John Maxwell. What was that connection like? You worked for him for 2 decades, or worked with him alongside him. What did that look like?
Well, I was in college when I met John Maxwell at a conference, and he ended up asking me to interview with him. And so my senior year, we kind of had gotten acquainted. And he said, if I had an opening on my team, would you be willing to come? And I said, okay.
Yeah, I definitely would.
I didn't need to pray about that one. So anyway, I joined his staff right out of college in the early 80s. I know that's a long time ago, but then moved to Atlanta from California when he relocated everybody.
Okay.
Just learned, you can imagine, I've just learned so much. I think the key working under John is maintaining your own personality and allowing the principles to transfer. You know,
I love that.
You know, every bit of his style. He's John. He's one of a kind. But I was able to get the transferable concepts and hopefully take them to another generation. That's
I love that. What a great distinction, right? You're around these people. He who walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools suffers harm. That you want to be who God's designed you to be, and it just like He designed John to be. And I love that distinction. Okay, so let's look across all the generations.
Okay.
What is a habit that you see consistently that helps separate effective leaders from average ones?
Wow. I would say a couple of things come to mind.
Okay.
These are fundamentals. Everybody that's listening would go, yeah, of course, but we don't practice them as well as we know them.
Okay.
One is humility. In fact, when I took data sets from all 5 generations, oldest to youngest, so builders, boomers, Xers, millennials, and then Gen Zers, I asked each generation, what do you want from the other generations when they interface with you? And well, you can imagine I got a whole bunch of
Oh, yeah.
answers. But one answer came up every time, humility.
Wow.
Everyone said, when you interact with me, I wish you were humble. I wish you were, you displayed humility, which, by the way, Matthew, you know this, it communicates, I'm teachable. I'm still
Yeah.
learn.
Yeah.
I can probably learn from you, even if you're younger. So if we do that, I think it's hard to go wrong. And then the other item would be a second cousin, just the willingness to listen. I think very often once we get older, we're the seasoned veterans, which is a nice way of saying we're old. Uh, I think we just don't listen as well. I would say the more you know, the harder it is to listen.
That's a great point.
Yeah, it's not possible. But if I know a bunch, I think, oh, I should be sharing with you. And I'm telling you, even with my 2 adult children, as well as the people I'm with, most of which are younger, if I stop to listen, it just screams value to them. So
Wow.
that would be what I would say there.
Yeah, that's a great distinction. I just recently had a moment where I was teaching a class, and this older couple came in. Visitors are always welcome, right? And it was really unique the way they had a lot of wisdom to share, but the way they communicated it was not in a very humble way. And a lot of the other people in the class that were there did not receive it well. And that's such a great distinction of the information was correct, but the messaging was wrong.
Yeah, that's huge. In fact, a lot of times it's not our verbal, it's our paraverbal communication.
That's a great point. Okay, tell me more about that.
Okay, so paraverbal would be the tone you strike. That's really what you're talking about with that older couple. So there's verbal language, that's our words, nonverbal, that's our body language. But I think much of what we say, we could get by with if we had the right tone. Somebody once said you can say almost anything if you say it right.
Yeah,
So anyway, I feel like that's something. One thing that's changing, Matthew, that I think is fundamentally different than when I first learned. When I first started my career, everybody young just listened to the old. If they didn't, the vast majority of us,
sure,
you listen to the older folks. Well, today Gen Z's coming along, and they're going, you should be listening to us. We see where the future is going. We see where culture is heading.
Sure.
We have visibility on AI and smart technology. And sometimes that 58-year-old does not have that. So I think what's different today is both sides need to be listening. And reverse mentoring is the name of the game.
Yeah, I love that perspective.
Yeah, I do too. So I'm practicing that right now with some younger team members, and it's just saving me every day.
So, okay. So tell me, for those who hear reverse mentoring, they may not understand that concept. Tell us what that means. And then for you specifically, if you don't mind sharing, like what's something recently that you learned from a younger team member on your team?
Good question. So at once, it's where an older generation person and a younger generation, you don't have to be 40 years apart, maybe 10, 15, 20, but get together and swap stories. Grab a coffee and just swap stories. I promise you, you'll always find something in common when you swap your stories.
Wow.
And each of you take turns pouring into the other. Now, it's natural for the old to pour into the young. We see that's a biblical mandate here.
Sure.
But once I poured into Andrew on our team, who's 30 years younger than me, or Cam, who's 40 years younger than me,
wow,
we switch hats, so to speak. And I said, all right, Cam, tell me how we could use that latest app you just got on your phone to market Growing Leaders Better or something like that. So Andrew and Cam both have been so good for me, but I enter the meeting checking my logo and my ego at the door.
Love that.
Human beings, and we're learning from each other. If I assume that posture, I'm always going to be better. And I don't have to worry about, did I look right? Did I sound like the smarter one? I don't care. I want to keep learning. So one recent example is Andrew just shared some stuff that they're doing digitally with the images that we've used for years and years and years.
Okay.
So much better than what I first developed 20 plus years ago.
Yeah, sure.
So you can see why I have to check my ego and my logo at the door and say, you know what? Best idea wins, not my idea wins.
And that's so hard. We've got so many small business owners that listen to this, right? There's a lot. We say our audience is small business owners, leaders, and entrepreneurs, people who want to leave corporate America and start an organization. So often we get into entrepreneurship because we want to be the one we feel like we have a direction we're going to go, and this is the direction we're going to go. And it's my way or the highway. But what you're saying is different than that. And it's not that you can't always lead, but it's this opportunity for you to be learning the bottleneck. Peter Drucker, bottlenecks are always at the top, right? You're the rate limiting step for growth within your organization. So how are you improving and leveraging across all the generations? I love that perspective so much.
Well, I tell you what, Matthew, the opening story in the new book, The Future Begins with Z, is the story of Colin Webb, who I've known since he was in high school.
Okay.
Graduated high school, went off to MIT, so smart student.
Yeah.
Graduates. You can imagine he had several job offers after he graduated from MIT. Well, he decides to take a job with one of the big three in Detroit.
Okay.
General Motors. Well, as he starts work there as this sharp 22-year-old, he has several ideas that could make GM better. They could do professional development better. They could do this system better or that process better. He took the ideas to his supervisor, and Colin's a very humble young man, but the supervisor basically said, "You just be quiet. You keep your head down, do your work, blah blah blah." Well, here's what's interesting, and you can imagine GM might have some very traditional ways of doing things.
Yeah, sure.
But Colin went back to his desk, and not disrespectfully, but very candidly, wrote the CEO of General Motors, Mary Barra, and he sends her his ideas in an email.
Love that.
Replies back, and she goes, "These are great ideas. Let me take them to our executive team." She takes them to the executive team. They all go, "Yeah, these are really good ideas." But by the time they make their way down the org chart to the middle managers and the supervisors, Colin's supervisor, they don't survive. Once again, Colin's told to just be quiet, do his work. In fact, he was told, you need to be around here 8 years before you get to lead.
Wow.
So here's why I bring up this story. Within a year, Colin quits GM.
Sure.
He's now started 3 different companies, sold one of them just recently, and he's doing quite well, I might add.
Good for him.
But I can't help but think GM missed out on a great opportunity because they had one way of looking at it.
Yeah.
And new guy, did he have everything together? No, he's new, but he had some ideas. So I think this mentoring thing needs to turn into a reverse mentoring thing. And if we're willing to learn from anyone, old and young, as entrepreneurs or business leaders, I'm telling you, the sky's the limit.
I love that. I love that perspective. And you see so much the managers issues with that, right? They're afraid that they're going to lose their job, right? That this young person's going to come in and they've got better ideas. And so it's easier just to squash that. Okay. So you write in this new book, a focus on Gen Z. People hear that, they may have misconceptions. What are some myths that typically people believe about Gen Z?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the myths that I've heard many managers voice. In fact, I discovered resumebuilder.com did a survey nationwide. 3 in 4 managers say Generation Z is the toughest generation to manage.
Wow. Okay.
And 30% say I fired them within the first week. So that's not a way forward. Maybe they deserved it, but that's not a way forward. We got to build bridges here. So one of the myths is, I think we assume as managers, if we're older especially, that Generation Z just doesn't want to work. They leave right at 5. They don't want to be here, blah, 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 blah. And it could be true. Maybe they don't. But I did focus groups after focus group after. I did 13 focus groups from Georgia to California.
Okay.
I found out they do want to work, but they're going to approach it in a different way. I talked to one young lady, a young professional, early 20s, and I said, bosses are saying you don't really want to work. You leave right at 5. And she looked at me and said, Dr. Elmore, can I tell you why I leave right at 5? I said, sure. She said, well, I have to rush right over to another job. I don't make enough to pay the bills on this firm. And once I finish my second job, I rush off to take care of my mother who has stage 4 cancer. And as she looked at me, I thought, oh boy, she may have a better work ethic than her boss does.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
You can see why a boss might assume, oh, they don't want to work. I think we need to talk and listen because there's something, all behavior has a reason. We back in the day were the new kids on the block and everybody thought we were knuckleheads. And then we showed that we can actually do something. So that would be one big myth. Another one is that they don't respect authority. And the truth of the matter is many authorities they don't respect. If they've seen evidence of bad leadership, it is hard for them to respect it. But I'll be honest with you, it's hard for me to respect a bad leader. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, amen.
But here's what I found out. Even though they have difficult time trusting traditional institutions like government and education and even religious institutions sometimes, they do trust an older person that they've gotten to know. So relation is key. So that institution, I don't know, jury's out on that. But if you'll get to know me, they say, build a relationship, earn your right to lead me through a bridge, not a badge. You follow what?
Yeah. So you talk about we lead from permission, not position. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I love that word analogy. Tell me a little bit more about winning their hearts over.
Okay. Well, it requires leaders to do something they feel like they have no time for, which is to stop down and really listen. So let's put ourselves in a scenario, Matthew. Let's say we have a Gen Zer on our team. Let's say we're a small business owner, maybe an entrepreneur, and we have this 22-year-old that just did some wingnut, foul tip, bonehead thing, okay? It's easy for us to go to them and rush into feedback.
Sure.
Hard feedback.
Sure.
What I've begun to do myself as a seasoned veteran. I have a 4-step process now, and I made it an acronym. So listeners, you can memorize this easy and practice it yourself. Matthew, you know how forever we've said this is the leg you got to stand on, meaning this is take as truth. ALEG, a leg is my acronym. The letter A reminds me I need to ask, not tell them what they've done is wrong. So when I ask a question like, hey, what was the thought process behind what you just did? I don't think I've ever thought about that before. Now, inside, I might be thinking that was ridiculous, but ask people about their thoughts. I communicate value to them. Don't you feel valuable when someone asks you questions?
Sure. You want to know my opinion? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. The letter L reminds me I need to listen. It does little good to ask a question if I'm not willing to do the work of listening. And when I listen, they feel heard, which, by the way, is the number one request of Gen Zers in my research. I want to have a voice from day one. The letter E is empathize. And that's something I had to learn. Okay. I need to find ways to relay to them, oh, I get it. Or I bet that made you feel awful when that happened. Or, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Those things say, I understand. So ask, they feel valued, listen, they feel heard, empathize, they feel understood. Now I've earned my right to do letter G, which is what I wanted to do from the beginning, which is to guide them. But I've done it once again through a bridge I built on I wear. And as cliche as that sounds, I'm telling you, if we can do that, we'll have young and old collaborating now. And the sky is the limit for your company, listeners. If you'll do this where it's level ground, and you're
love that.
Certainly you have to run point if you're a leader, but
yeah, sure. But I love that perspective of I'm going to seek some information before I give direction. That I'm going to try to make as informed decision as I can. Yeah. And as leaders, we struggle with that so much. It's like I know the right way to go. I know what happened here. I've been around the block. I know what's happened, and we just try to move forward. But I love that perspective. Okay, let's take a second. Like as a dad, I've learned that right with my boys. I've got 7, 4, and 2 at home. And asking them questions instead of just stepping in and saying, hey, this is what you did wrong, has led to a lot deeper conversation with my boys, specifically my 7-year-old, of getting him to think better and think through the way I would like for him to think in the perspective that I have.
How many times did Christ lead with questions?
Amen.
His image is on the coin. Who do you say that I I mean, he led with questions. It's brilliant. So I need to tell a personal story. Uh, I have two adult children, both in their 30s.
Okay.
Couple of holidays ago, couple of Christmases ago, my daughter said something that was very mean uh, about the family, and
Okay.
she regretted it. But we had a little hard phone call.
Okay.
When we got done, my wife helped me with this, but I realized I may have just shut her down. So I called up my daughter, Bethany, and I said, honey, I think I may have just shut you down. And I didn't say this, but Matthew, I didn't realize the power gap that existed between father and.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So I said, could we get on the phone once a month, just you and me, talk for an hour, and all I plan to do is listen? Well, it was quiet for a minute. And then she said, okay. And we've done it every month. And it's been so brilliant. But me, the patriarch of the family, who's written books.
Yeah, sure. That's done all this research, that has the doctorate, right? Yeah, it's such what an incredible testimony for you, right? But we have a lot of parents that listen to this as well. But anybody on our team, it's this understanding of, I hired you for a reason.
Yeah, that's right.
And I want to engage with you as a man of faith myself. I believe everybody has innate value because Christ died for them. Absolutely. And so as someone with innate value that the creator of the word created, you have a unique skill set and perspective that you can provide to our organization. And why would I limit that? Why would it only be my perspective?
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. So the big idea in chapter 1 of the new book addresses what you just said. This is why leading Gen Z can be the most frustrating and fascinating. I should say. But you have to make a choice as a leader. So here's the big idea. I call it the Peter Pan paradox.
Yep.
So everybody listening probably remembers the story of Peter Pan, this whimsical character that flew into London. How he did that, we don't know. Sprinkles pixie dust everywhere and magical things happen. Okay. The other side of the coin to Peter Pan's character is he didn't want to grow up. Remember, he wanted to live in Neverland.
Yeah.
Well, the paradox is this: in the workplace going forward, we're going to find that the age of authority seems to be decreasing.
Okay.
The age of maturity seems to be increasing. So they're coming in young, early 20s, but having authority not from a position. They don't have a position, but they have intuition on the future. They have visibility on where culture's going. They understand AI and smart technology, and they're going to come up with ways to monetize that app.
Yeah.
You know that?
Yeah.
So the age of authority is dropping, which is frustrating to someone older.
Sure.
But at the same time, it becomes doubly challenging because the age of maturity, meaning when they're socially and emotionally mature enough to look you in the eye and shake your hand and have a conversation and listen as well as talk, all of those things, we're seeing the numbers show. So if I'm right about this, age of authority going down, age of maturity going up, that means leaders need to listen a bit more than we ever used to listen.
Okay.
And coach a bit more than we used to coach. That's the big idea of chapter 1. And that's what I'm just on a war path. I'm on a war path to help leaders get this issue right, because Gen Z is the future. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but we know one thing: Gen Z is going to be there.
Amen. Yeah, I love that perspective. Okay, so a little bit later in the book, you talk about extending the interview process into the onboarding process. That it helps onboarding, it helps us get acclimated. Can you tell us what that means? Can you expand on that a little bit more? Give us some examples. What does it look like as a small business owner? What do you mean by that?
Thank you for asking. You were a great interviewer, by the way.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Well, you are. It's why you do what you do. So I believe that traditional interviews were the hiring manager meets with that job candidate, however old or young, and they have all these expectations and requirements that they want to make sure, and they need to, because this job requires something. I'm about to pay you something.
Yeah.
But I think it needs to go both ways. So in that chapter on interviewing and onboarding, I share the acronym PERKS, P-E-R-K-S. I think it needs to go both ways. So as an interviewer, I am saying, tell me what your preferences are on the job. we may be able to do them or not, but let's just talk about what do you wish were true on this job? Okay. The reason that's important is because there might be some slight advantage you can gain to keep that Gen Zer
Sure.
able to put that Coke machine in the dining room or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
What it is. Okay. The letter E is even stronger than preferences. It's expectations. I believe conflict expands based on the distance between expectations and reality. Think about
That's a great point. Yeah. In
Yeah.
any relationship, as a husband, as a spouse, in your kids, as a business owner. Yeah.
Right. I usually illustrate with marriage. If I tell my wife I'm going to be home at 7:00 for dinner and I get home at 7:10, not a big deal. If I get home at 9:30, we're going to have a hard conversation. But it isn't because she couldn't live without me for 2.5 hours. It's because I created an expectation. And everything rises and falls on that. So when I talk about expectations, the good news is we either learn something that we can collaborate on, or we find out right away, listen, that's never going to happen here. I need to show you the door. I'm so sorry. I'll pray for you. You know.
So as a business owner, how are we helping? Give us some insight into the questions. So we're bringing this person on, we're onboarding them, we're extending that interview process. What are some questions that we ask to get to the heart of what their expectations are?
Okay, so they might go, well, my expectation is that you are marching for Black Lives Matter or this, that, or the other, and all of them, which are great causes. But if you hear an expectation and you go, that's not going to happen here. I'm so sorry, but
sure.
It's not who we are. You must be, maybe you want to go to another place yourself. Maybe we're not right for you. But when I ask about expectations, it might be well beyond their job description. It's some expectation about the culture. We want, free beer on Friday. I don't know what it would be. But,
sure.
It's just a good time to get it out. Better to find it out now than a year later. Now there's gossip going on in the back room and, all kinds of things happening that you could have warded off early had you found out early on in the first week. So that's expectations. The letter R is even stronger. So preferences, expectations, R is requirements. What do you require? Now, I'm the hiring manager. If I'm going to share what I require of them,
sure.
But I want to hear, what do you require of this workplace? Once again, Gen Z's coming in hot sometimes. And when I say hot, maybe with audacious requests.
Sure.
Talked to an HR director who told me a Gen Zer said, now, you said the job is hybrid, so I should be making bonuses since I have to come into the office another days every week.
Okay.
He had to explain to her, no. Working from home is the bonus. Going into the office is actually normal, But isn't that interesting? He had to explain, you got an expectation and a requirement. He said, we can't get a bonus for coming to work.
Yeah, sure. But again, like you said, on the front end, you're able to clarify that with this individual. You're able to show them enough respect to say, hey, I hear you say this, but that is not here.
Yeah.
And so if you can work here with this expectation and reality, like this is the requirement of this job. If this is not going to work, let's end this relationship now, rather than when you're upset 6 months from now and trying to sabotage, quiet quit, all those kind of things.
Yes. I couldn't have said it better. That's exactly right. It's having hard conversations before easy ones. If you're willing to do the hard thing first, things become easy after that.
Amen.
If you do the easy ones first, Lord knows what's going to happen later with this quiet suspicion or, skepticism that grows because you're not doing it the way they wanted you to do it.
Yeah.
It's become huge.
Yeah, it's a great question. Okay, great point. Okay, so we get to K. So PERK.
Okay. Yep. K is keys to their heart. I think I want to find out in the job interview, what are the keys? What makes you tick? Maybe I find out they love the Chicago Cubs, or maybe I find out they love playing chess. I don't know. But I think for leaders to find out about team members, what their loves are, maybe their love languages or whatever, all of that helps me connect with them better. And we're able to talk about things other than just the job.
And so do you have a specific interview type questions? Is it the interview style that it's more conversational? How would you get to that information in either the onboarding or the interview process?
So along the way in the interview, I do start with professional. So I am talking about, the office or wherever it is the workplace is. The keys to the heart now really tells me a lot about their personal life.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to pry. I'm trying to say to them in a very personable tone, I want to know what makes you tick. Tell me about yourself. If it's done in the right way and it doesn't feel like you're trying to pry into their personal life, they want to share. Oh my gosh, I have been a diehard Braves fan forever, or whatever. Um, so I just feel like that leads me to a better relationship along the way. So
Okay.
keys to the heart, love languages, what motivates you, what's your passion in
Sure.
life? Maybe it's acting. Maybe they want to be an actor. I don't know. But that's when I find it out. And now we've got a real connection point there. And then the last letter, S, is something that should come up in every job interview, but it's salary. You're talking about compensation now, which, by the way, sometimes isn't crystal clear until you have the conversation. But if I follow perks, I'm probably going to have a great beginning. I know them and they know me. And now the onboarding, I want to make their first week unforgettable.
Okay.
Illustrations in the book on how companies have done this so well, where they feel welcome and cared for. They have a Sherpa guide that's assigned to them, meaning another team member that can walk them through the first week, take them to lunch. And the reason this is key is in a nationwide survey, Generation Z reported, I make up my mind how long I'm going to stay on the job on day one.
Whoa. Okay.
Which isn't fair, but it's true. So we need to make that first day and first week absolutely unforgettable, at least if you care about keeping them. Yeah.
I love that. So in kind of continuing in the way we communicate with each other, you talk about the EPIC style of communication.
Yeah.
Explain to us. It's experimental, participatory, image rich, and connected. Why did Gen Z connect better with that? How do you get through better with this style? Can you give us a little bit of background there?
Yeah, sure. Well, EPIC is another acronym. I'm so sorry.
No, I love it. I love acronyms. So it's
if
perfect.
you read this book, folks, I'm going to try to give you handles. So they love EPIC communication, which is the opposite of what they got maybe in college.
Okay.
Lecture, drill, memorization, and test. It's just talking head in front of a lecture hall.
Sure.
Maybe. I don't know. So EPIC reminds me, I want to make sure I'm experiential in my communication. So I don't just, here's a good way to say it. They're not looking for a sage on the stage.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That makes total sense.
Yeah. They're looking for a guide on the side with an experience. So if I can create an environment or an experience from which we talk, but the experience creates the discussion. You follow what I'm saying?
Sure.
That we all like that better. If we're 80, we like that better than a lecture, probably. So experiential. The letter P is participatory. Gen Z wants to participate in the outcomes of where this thing is going. They want to have a say. Gen Z supports what they help create. So if you help them create something and they have their hands in it.
Love that.
Yeah. If you let them weigh in, you're going to get buy-in. That's kind of what
Yeah.
The letter I in EPIC reminds me image rich. For years and years and years, I have used images to communicate big ideas. Habitudes are images that form leadership habits and attitudes.
Yeah.
It's an image. It sparks conversation because pictures are worth 1,000 words. So I think it engages the right brain, not just the left brain when we go to images, not just words. And then the letter C, Matthew, is connected. They want to find that the communication helps them connect with each other as well as the leader.
Okay.
I'm EPIC in my communication as much as possible. I don't have to do all four all the time. It just creates engaged team members that stay with you for the long haul and remember what you said.
Yeah, I love that perspective. And I love the idea of tweaking the way we're communicating the information. We don't have to communicate specifically different information, but it's the messaging, it's the way we're packaging, it's the way we're delivering it. It's a little bit different to communicate in a way that they will receive that and hopefully be transformed by it, right? It can transform our organizations if they're more plugged in and connected. I love that perspective so much. You also talk about this idea of soft skills, right? That this generation is, if they're lacking in something, it seems to be soft skills. Give us some insight as business owners. how can we help this generation develop soft skills? How can we help mentor them, guide them, as you've said, into developing soft skills? What advice would you have there?
Okay, good question. Well, first of all, I do believe the data shows that Gen Z is not a bad generation, not a wicked or evil generation. They're not even behind necessarily, except in the area that they have spent so much time on a screen all their life growing up. And you just don't develop emotional intelligence on a screen, at least right now, you don't.
Sure.
It may be better at, talking with Siri or Alexa or Google, that sort of. So soft skills, we need to intentionally go after. Remember I mentioned you got to coach a little bit more than you used to coach. Some of it is fundamentals. So how do we do that? I think, first of all, we need to make it a topic of conversation. So let's say you have a Gen Zer that's just joined the team. They're very smart in certain categories, but they're low on their EQ, their soft skills, okay? I might say to them, the greatest way you can differentiate yourself is to develop your emotional intelligence. AI is replacing jobs more and more and more, and they know that. They're actually feeling threatened in entry-level jobs by the presence of AI.
Okay.
You're motivating them saying, you know what will set you apart from, Chat GPT? To become an emotionally intelligent person, which means I'm self-aware, I can manage myself, I'm socially aware, and I can manage the relationships of my life. That is huge. And so often, Matthew, that's nuances. I'll share a story with you. I have a friend that was invited to speak in Tokyo, Japan.
Okay.
Did a talk to some C-suite executives. And when she got done, she said, all right, any questions here? Nobody said anything. She goes, well, thank you very much. It's been great to be with you. And she walks off the stage. Well, her translator, her interpreter, ran after her and said, why did you leave? She goes, well, nobody had a question. He goes, oh, yes, they did. Come back out here with me. So the translator pulls her out with him, and she watches now as he says, does anybody have a question? And then, yes. 7 people had questions. You see, she had failed to study her audience. In Japan, if you ask, do you have a question? They're not like Americans that raise your hand, hey, I got a question right here. Like that.
I'm ready to talk. Yeah.
That's right.
I want to be heard. Yeah.
In Japan, at that level especially, if you just look up, you're signaling quietly, I have a question. So he saw the faces looking up and knew exactly, he read the room. Read the room. That's what EQ is. It's teaching people to read the nuances and the body language. And I'm telling you, I think we need this in business. We need it in the church. I'm telling you, everywhere we look, this is the need of the hour. And it's the human part of us. It's what makes us human and not robotic. So
do you have any resources that you recommend that we can go to ourselves as leaders and also send them to help shape those soft skills?
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of them come to mind. This is what I'm addressing a lot. So I did a book a few years back called The 8 Paradoxes of Great Leadership.
Yep.
And nearly all of them are about emotional intelligence. You need to be confident and humble, but you need to know when they need each one, right? You need to be stubborn and open-minded.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
But you choose what you're stubborn about and you're open-minded on everything else. So there's 8 of these. I would love to recommend that. It's just a book that has sold quite well because it's really helping leaders understand the stuff nobody seems to talk about, but we all need.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'd love that. We'll definitely make sure we put that in the show notes. Okay. So Tim, one of the, you use these leadership images. Again, you use acronyms. I love that. I connect with that so much. You also use these leadership images and use the velvet brick. And when I first read that, I thought, I cannot believe Dr. Tim Elmore is going to tell me to throw a brick at someone, because that's what I initially thought. And then I read it. So people who hear that, can you tell us what the velvet brick is? Can you tell us a little bit more about how do we engage with that leadership image?
Yeah, so I developed about 140 leadership images. Each one represents a timeless principle. This one is my favorite one about leadership. I think the best leaders are velvet covered bricks. Velvet on the outside. I understand you. I accept you. I support you. I believe in you. Inside, that's a brick. Yeah, kind of hard and crusty,
Yeah.
which means because I believe in you, I'm not going to lower the standard because it's hard to do today. By the way, isn't that a good parent principle? Good parents are velvet bricks. So grace and truth, tough and tender, strong and yet sensitive. So it's knowing when to be velvet and when to be brick. And I think the combination is what makes people just brilliant leaders. And one last thought I would share. Based on your personality, listeners, you tend to be strong in one or the other.
Okay.
You tend to be a very velvet person. I'm always accepting and lowering the bar and being gracious when I probably ought to demand they rise to the occasion.
Sure.
I'm just a brick, and nobody likes just bricks. So they need leaders who are both responsive and demanding. That's the need of the hour. Yeah.
And when I read that, I can think through leaders in my life that have mentored me, my board of advisors, old coaches that were both of those. And so that's why I want to make sure we hit on that, because I immediately started thinking about these men and some women, but specifically for me, men in my life that had held that kind of grace and truth so well for me, that they didn't overplay one hand or the other, but they held those two things together. As leaders, it's so difficult, right? But so needed for us. And so I love that distinction. Okay, as we're kind of coming to the end of our time, Dr. Tim, I appreciate your time so much. One thing I would love to kind of get to, you write, I haven't read all 35 of your books. One day I will, but I've read many. You write with a very optimistic tone. And I love that. But specifically with this book in this generation, talk to us about your optimism. Talk to us about your optimistic look for that future. Give us a good note for us to kind of close out this conversation on Gen Z.
Yeah, great. That's a really great question to end on. Well, there's two sides to this coin, and I'll make it brief, but here they are. On the one side, even if Gen Z might be frustrating to an older leader, I love this phrase. Generation Z is the sandpaper on my leadership I did not know I needed.
I love that. That's fantastic.
I'm going to be a better leader thanks to this new generation that won't put up with the BS or whatever. They're demanding us to be real. And so let them be sandpaper if you're an older leader. But the other one is every new and young generation does better when they're led by people that, albeit very hard, finds a way to believe in them. So my favorite story on this is actually in the book, but way back when my generation were the new kids on the block, just starting our careers, I know you'll remember this, listeners. NASA back in the 1960s pulled off something that we had never pulled off before in the history of the United States. We put a space capsule on the moon. And if you remember, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were two men that walked on the moon in July of 1969. The story behind the story is what makes it awesome. When JFK, the president, predicted that we would put a man on the moon, NASA did not even have the technology to do such a thing. They didn't.
Amazing.
They'd been using 1950s technology, which was nowhere near what they needed. So they're quickly obtaining new tag from MIT and Purdue and Georgia Tech and other universities. And what they noticed was it was the young interns that really knew how to use it. By the way, does this sound familiar to anybody? The poor people that are 48 or 58 are going, TikTok, you know? So the young people began to be placed in positions of influence. And when we put the man on the moon, the younger generations were in charge. In fact, the average age of the operator, when you see pictures of these men at the stations with monitors, average age, 27 years old.
Wow.
Not 57,
wow.
20. In fact, Matthew, the guy that actually said go, not no, to pull the trigger and actually put the space caps on the moon, 23 years old. Jack Garman, 23 years old, 1 year out of college.
Wow.
The older generations were what they called SimSups, simulators supervisors. They were the mentors that coached the youngest generation who pulled off this incredible feat. So listeners, I'm asking you to assume your positions. You be the supervisor. You be that coach, that mentor. You're still going to do some work, but they need the coaching you offer. But they're going to be fired up, energetic, ready to charge hell with a water pistol at 23 years old.
I love it.
Let them. But we got to trust them with some high stakes responsibility, which is what NASA did. So take that picture with you. That's what drives me forward even today with this new book on Gen Z. Yeah.
What an incredible way for us to close our time. Dr. Tim, thank you for your time. Those that want to follow along, how do they get connected to you? Please don't give a cell phone number. How do they get connected to you? How do they get your new book? Like, how do they get into your sphere of our audience that is not currently?
Sure. Well, thanks for asking. I'm on most social media platforms. So if you want to follow me, this is the kind of stuff I talk about. It's at Tim Elmore on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. My website is timelmore.com. And the new book, you can find it about anywhere, but it's thefuturebeginswithz.com. Thefuturebeginswithz.com. And if you pre-order the book, you can get a lot of bonus content for free. This conversation represents a little bit of the book, but later, if you get later, you can get it on Amazon or HarperCollins or whatever. You can get it wherever books are sold. Yeah.
Well, I've had the opportunity to read it. It is fantastic. So those who are considering looking for a new book this fall, please encourage you to get that, especially as leaders and as business owners, which so much of our audience is. Dr. Tim, thank you. Thank you for the way that you're leading. Thank you for the way that you're serving. Thank you for the information that you're sharing to make all of us better. And I appreciate the way that you're leading. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on Market Mavericks. We'll see you soon. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Market Mavericks. We hope you're walking away inspired and ready to take your own adventure to the next level. Don't forget to follow the show to keep up with our latest episodes. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe, share it with others who could benefit. And hey, if you know a market maverick who has a story that needs to be heard, please drop their name in the comments. We would love to bring their insights to the show. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries and leading with purpose.